I am reading from my book Srinagar, My State, My Dreamland, a chapter about burglars. The burglars in our part of the state also had a tale to tell, a story to tell, perhaps that many might not have heard before. Is not about Robin Hood, is not a tale about some robbers from our folk literature that robbed the rich and gave it to the poor. Is not about life children. Is not a katha from Katha Sarit Saga, 900 years old treasure of stories that had spellbound people for many centuries. Many a time, I am convinced that we had a great tradition of storytelling. Our grandmothers were great storytellers, as good as Somdeva and Hatam Telmai. Many stories in their treasure were part of the oral tradition that had survived in memory and word of mouth, but many belonged to their times. There were stories about thieves, robbers, burglars, and pickpockets. The clan of outlaws has been part of social fabric of my part of the state. There were stories about robbers on Old Tsar Road. There were lots of stories about two legendary thieves, Amukhandur and Gulekhandur. These thieves, we were told, lived about 1,000 yards or so away from our Muhammad. Unlike others of their tribe, they did not bore into a meter thick stone and brick walls with iron rods, or broke open the doors or windows for entering into a house, but wriggled their way inside through the drains. Our imagination failed how they could make their way inside home through drains that siphoned out water from the house, but we believed these stories. We believed the myth that these two could squeeze themselves to the size of a python. Many of folk songs about these thieves survived in our childhood. Damsha Boyas, Surya Zahid, Vashita Leas, Kachnas Gore. When thieves broke into the house of the grocer, they snatched away his granddaughter from his bosom. There were many folk songs about the thieves that resonated in our childhood. There were stories that these two thieves supported and aided the families of dooms that had migrated from hilly areas in north for the fear of Khokas, the dreaded tribals. One of the stories that amused us most was about two petty thieves. There was one Malik family belonging to the Shia sect in our locality. On a Nowruz, they had cooked fish, nadur, and radish. The news about Malik family having cooked sumptuous dish had spread like a wildfire in the nearby locality. The news had watered the mouth of two thieves who were distributing the booty amongst themselves in Malka, the biggest graveyard in the city. Even in our childhood, Malacca, this graveyard, our eternal resting place, was known for being abode of burglars at night and gamblers during the daytime. The burglars broke into the family of the Maliks and barged into their kitchen and started eating the delicacy. The grandmother often made us laugh at the timidity of their eldest son, the Nizam, perhaps Nizamuddin, who watched these thieves relishing their Navroz dish but did not dare to speak a word. All that he could speak in muffled voice was Moji, Moji, Chulhe, Chulhe. The thieves, after finishing, woke up the family and paid them 1 rupee as cost of the food. To keep us indoors and safe from frost bites, the grandmother would tell us many stories. In our days, even later, we not only heard the stories about this clan, but also saw them. Some of them, despite their outlawries, were popular for flavor of their lingo. They started their discourse with pleasant phrases like Lagyas, Lagas Balai, I sacrifice myself for you, Myon Su, my life, Myon Tot, my dearest of all. Munmaya Zoo, my life and soul for you. There were some thieves who in their localities were known for their political astuteness. Many of them during their jail terms had been engaged as Khadmatgars, servants with detained political leaders. Some of the burglars and thieves had worked as cooks for the then towering leaders Sheikh Muhammad Abdullah, Mirza Muhammad Afzal Beg, Maulana Muhammad Saeed Masoodi, Sufi Muhammad Akbar, and people like Qadi Safuddin and others. Some of them had been closely associated with some of the progressive front leaders during their detentions. Some in the company of these leaders had become very wise and understood the nuances of Kashmir politics. Some had developed a sense of history. Some had learned Persian language and read classics and could quote from them. Some, after serving these leaders, not only become their admirers but also reformed themselves. I remember one, Qaida. I remember one of the reformed burglars, Qaida. He ran a tea stall less than a mile from our home. In jail, he had been Khadmatgar of Mirza Muhammad Afzal Beg for many years. I do not know if he had assimilated his wit and witticism, but he would be often seen talking about politics. I would often see some seasoned political workers of the 26th Front, the National Conference and the Democratic National Conference, sitting in his shop and discussing global politics with him. Later, when he shifted his tea shop near a bus stop on the University Road, I would see student activists sipping tea on his shop and discussing politics and the political situation as obtained those days. He did not join any political party, but I have seen many known pickpockets and burglars reforming themselves and becoming active political workers after being released from jails. Many pickpockets in our childhood were in news. Arresting a pickpocket or eloping of a woman with a lover made big news in our childhood. one of the topmost newspapers, was known for carrying such news as second hand. I have seen a pickpocket who could pass for an aristocrat with his Astrakhan cap, grey-colored cashmere apron, and dusan slinging from his shoulders. I once asked a pickpocket, Gafara, what was best season for him? When did he have the maximum income? He replied, the best day for business was whenever there is a political raid. When Sheikh Saab was released in 64, he said that he had made 6,000 from Badwara to Lalchur. In our childhood, it made a big news when a women pickpocket, Zuna Pathain, was arrested by police. I don't know why she was called Pathan or Pathain, perhaps for her robust health. But she had aroused curiosity in the children, and I remember we went to see this women pickpocket. It had not come as a shock to the elite, but I do remember that it had irritated the riffraffs in our locality. A women of locality pickpocketing at people's pockets had short ragtags and bobtails. I remember overhearing some of them talking on a butcher's shop in our locality. You need a randa for marrying this woman. I understood meaning of this Kashmiri word as a bully, but in their lexicon it had much wider connotation than commonly understood. It perhaps meant for them a blending of bully and gallant, a dauntless person who would not mind what the society says about his marrying a pickpocket and giving her social status. I remember a young man known for his boldness volunteered and married this pickpocket woman. Later on, nothing was heard of her. Perhaps she settled to a dignified life. There were many stories about randas or burglars in our city that become relevant for understanding social ethos in our childhood. There were stories